Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, 4 Nerds by Nerds, hanging out with
Nathan Nerdarchy.
So today we're talking about turtles and Tortle Power! Jump down in the description below where you can find Nerdarchy, the newsletter, as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy. But not only that, you can also find a link to the DMsGuild product, Tortles 5e. So we just recently got, I guess it was Friday, this past Friday, if you're seeing this video when it goes up on Monday afternoon. We just got a new DMsGuild product put out by Wizards of the Coast, and it is 5e Tortles. It's also connected to charity, so the proceeds from this product are also going to go to that charity as well. I believe it's like a children's hospital or something.
That's great. Now, I have to say, what I really like about the name is that they just changed the word turtle. They didn't make it some kind of weird esoteric name. They just changed it. You do it an O. It's great.
Perfect.
Perfect.
So from that product, what you're going to get is you're going to get an adventure, you're going to get a race, you're going to get a couple new monsters, like 3 of them. No, 4 of them, because the turtle actually gets stats as a monster as well as a player race. And then you're going to get a druid turtle NPC. You do get a couple like NPCs in the adventure, but they're not like fully static
and stuff.
Yeah. So, but today what we're going to go over is turtles as a player character race. So one of the, I guess, like, especially if you're a child of like the 90s and 80s, like this is pure gold, right? You can play a Mutant Ninja Turtle now.
Yeah, I've already been on several message groups. There's like, yes, when are we doing the TMNT play?
Tortle Power is everywhere.
Yes, Tortle Power.
So it's, you know what? When I envisioned a race of humanoid turtles, I did not envision this vision. Like what, you know, how they interact, how they go about their daily lives. Yeah, it's completely different than I would have expected.
Yeah, I agree. I was thinking more of like a slow, ponderous race when it came to things, but they are natural adventurers. In fact, you were saying earlier that if they don't like something or a bad situation, they'll just leave. Yeah,
like they don't really have their own places per se. They will create like a moot point where they all kind of come and gather, and it's like heavily defended, and they'll take like things they've learned from going out in the world and incorporate it into the defenses. That being said, if the instant things turn bad, they don't like dig in and fight harder to preserve this place. They just leave. They're like, you want it? All right, guess have it. Because it's weird in the sense that like you said, they live this life of adventure, right? So as soon as they're kind of like old enough to be on their own, that's it. That's what they do. They just go out. They love to interact with other races. They don't have their own gods. If they become a cleric or a druid, they're going to worship somebody else's god because it works for them. They've got this weird thing where they kind of like revere the sun and the moon because they see them as being the eyes of day and night. And anytime like both of them are visible at the same time, like that's the time for them to start a new endeavor because it's considered a good omen. While if neither of them are visible, it's a bad omen. So they don't like going indoors and underground and places where they cannot look up into the sky and see the sun or the moon.
And so a new moon would not be a good night for them.
Yeah. If they can't look up and see it in the sky, it's a bad omen. It's considered unlucky. So the life cycle of a turtle is, they're born, but the only time that turtles procreate is when they get close to the end of their lives, which is weird. So that means like different. They have like no sex drive throughout their whole entire life, pretty much, and then at the end they're like, okay, get me some and spawn something
before I'm off.
Yeah,
never to return.
And then it's like they're with their parent for like 9 months to a year, I think is what it says. And in that time, the parent is like divesting all they've learned and knowledge and everything to their children, and they have 1 to 12 eggs at a time. And then they like kind of give them their whatever stuff they have. Then they die, and then the turtles go adventuring.
And that's an interesting life cycle. And that makes sense for them going off adventuring because they don't have a stable household. If you were left at like 5 years old to just fend for yourself after your parents taught you everything and they die, I was like, well, you could go wherever you want now, so why stay?
Yeah, and they mature really fast, but they only live like 40, 50 years.
Which is another kind of strangeness because, turtles, I usually think of them as long-lived creatures.
Yes, absolutely.
That's just my impression. I'm sure there's turtles that don't live that long, but some of the ones, the bigger ones, live for like 100 or so years.
Yeah, and that's just it. Like, there's turtles that live 150 years, or I think I've heard even more ridiculous numbers than that. So yeah, that part is really odd. And so like, and like you said, you think of a turtle, you think of this slow, ponderous creature. These guys are definitely not that. But that being said, a turtle in water moves pretty quick, and I've seen some turtles kind of book as well, but they're more like sprinters.
Yes.
So, so there's all of that cool stuff that's going on with them. They're like all about absorbing other people's cultures and learning and interacting with different races and cultures. So from that standpoint, that makes them they're really interesting and they're ideal adventurers. But now let's kind of get into like the nuts and bolts.
All right. Well, their ability score increase is they get a +2 to strength and a +1 to wisdom. So they're strong and a bit wise. So that's kind of how that goes. I think that's on par with what I would think for a turtle.
Yeah, and so that makes them ideal for any of the warrior classes.
Yes, as well as you can do a druid or cleric.
Then one of the things that kind of stood out to me was their size, right? It's not anything particularly incredible, but the fact that they're like 5 to 6 foot tall, but they average around 450 pounds.
Yeah, that's bulk. That's a big.
Yeah, I mean, and they say most of that is their shell, obviously.
Yes, I was concerned that they were going to have a slower speed than the average, but they've got a 30.
Yeah, they did not slow them down. They are not slow. They're not ponders. They're going. They're getting out into the world. They're seeing stuff and doing things.
And along with the physical, they have a natural attack for their claws.
Right, not a big deal. It's just they do slashing damage instead of bludgeoning damage, and they get a D4. So they're like natural tavern brawlers, except for they'll cut you.
Cut you. Yeah, they bring a knife to the fist fight
every time.
Now I've said that. I think we've all said before that natural attacks on races not super great, but it's nice to have. I mean, it's like a dagger you've always got on your person. But you play certain types of characters, and if you need to use your natural attacks, stuff's gone south.
Yeah, it's either a case like you said, there's a problem because you're just forced to use it, or you have better options.
Yes.
So then they also have hold breath. So basically, they're not particularly good swimmers, but they can hold their breath for up to an hour.
That's nice for covert operations or hiding when you're trying to run away from a bad situation, which they tend to do.
Yeah, and it's gonna be very specific. There's circumstances where it's going to be useful and helpful, but it's not exactly game changing.
Yeah. Now these next two abilities are like the super big deal for the Tortle, and that is natural armor and shell defense.
Okay.
So for the natural armor, they just have a flat AC 17.
Now already, this is people have been. I think they've been swamping Jeremy Crawford and Sage of Ice with, hey, does this stack? No, it stacks with nothing. It's like any other way you calculate armor class in the PHB, you have to pick or choose. Mm-hmm. And in the case, they get a 17, they don't use their dex modifier, so they don't get bonuses, they don't get penalties from their dex. The only thing they can do is use a shield. Now, if there's something that gives you a magic bonus, then you'll get a benefit.
Yeah, and I just equated it to they're just always in split mail and they can't take it off.
Yeah, pretty much. They're not going to, I don't think they're going to be able to wear armor. And even if they do, it's going to be, you have to choose which you want to use. So I could see, you could make some kind of, special plate mail for them.
Yeah, can you imagine making a specialized plate for a Tortle? And it only gives you one extra AC.
Yeah. And it's going to be, so it's probably going to be extremely expensive to have that done.
Yeah.
It's probably not worth it. Mm-hmm. But there is definitely some classes that are going to benefit from this armor class by a lot. Now, if you're a monk, you don't get to add your wisdom, as we kind of said. If you're a barbarian, you don't get to add your con. So those things are to keep in mind. You're not going to benefit from a draconic ancestry. If you are a sorcerer, you're not going to benefit from mage armor. But things like Shield of Faith and the shield spell, those things are going to be helpful.
And, as a wizard or another type of spellcaster, things like mage armor and things, you don't have to cast them because your armor is just better. So you get your spells for other things.
Well, why would you?
Exactly. Now, the other part is the shell defense, and that's where they can withdraw into their shell as an action, and they get +4 to AC, but there's also a whole bunch of other stuff that goes on.
So they get advantage on strength and con checks, as well as They're considered prone, disadvantaged on dexterity saves, and the only action they can take is a bonus action to come out of their shells.
Yeah, they can't take reactions, other actions. They can concentrate on spells, though.
Yeah, that is the one thing I find interesting. Like, what spells would it benefit them for? Which spells would it benefit for them to kind of like cast it and then suck into their shell? Like, I know I've seen in the chatter about Witch Bolt, but Witch Bolt doesn't really work because you can't take actions. You know, you'd have to have an action every round to expend on doing the Witch Bolt.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sure there's maybe some other ones. You had said like Spirit Guardians, maybe.
Yeah, I believe so. The 3rd level cleric spell that just does damage in an area. You just have to concentrate, and it'll keep going.
Yeah, so you could kind of just like hunker down and be like, here's a safe place for my allies, or pop out as a bonus action, run into the thick of it, and jump back into your shell.
Yeah.
So there's probably some like interesting things you can do with that. I'm sure we'll see those combos start to unfold.
If they were to ever go into a grand Lee or a war, it would be interesting to see the Tortle strategy.
Yeah, a bunch of them.
Yeah, how they would do it and what they would do, and if they would either even congregate for a war. I think that would be something that would have to really get a lot of them onto the same pathway.
Yeah, I'm envisioning them, a bunch of them being catapulted, right?
Yeah.
And then someone casts Featherfall. Why they all concentrate on like Spirit Guardians or something.
Oh yeah, that'd be terrible. That would be deadly.
Yeah, so then the only thing is left is their survival instinct, which gives them the survival skill.
Mm-hmm. And that, I think that comes from them year 1.
Yeah,
being on their own.
Pretty much, it's sink or swim.
Yeah, and the idea that they just would leave an area. I think they feel confident because they're like, well, I can just walk off into the woods or the jungle and be fine.
And then that leaves us with languages. They get a bit of a different language. They get Aquan and Common. So now the idea is like, how would you use these guys? You know, what do you see them being? Like we talked about anything that having to do with strength or wisdom, basically being really efficient at.
Anything that benefits from plus strength is going to be well suited to be, selecting Tortle as your race.
Yeah, that leaves us with fighters, paladins, rangers, barbarians, and like the interesting thing about the Tortle option is anything you choose can kind of be like, I don't really need dex now. Mm-hmm. There's some areas where that will hurt you, but overall, like it lessens it's your need to have a decent dex.
Yeah, you probably should at least put a 10 in it, so you're not getting negatives to dex saves. But aside from that, it's not necessary.
Right. The class that I see benefiting the most from being a Tortle? Ranger.
Really?
Ranger generally doesn't get good armor options. They don't get heavy armor, and you're kind of always wearing heavy armor.
That's true. Now, you'd have to be more of the strength based than the dex based, but...
You absolutely. But still, use a shield, be a Tortle, and I think you're going to be good to go.
That's correct.
Now, Paladin to me seems like a fun option. Granted, you're not going to have the maxed out dex, but you can have the high strength, and I just see it as being a fun choice.
Yeah. Oh, I see the unoptimal spellcasters being a really fun choice. Like I could see doing like the concentration wizard kind of thing where you hide in your shell or something like that. I think that would be really cool being a sorcerer or a wizard.
Yeah. Well, yeah, being a wizard, being a warlock. Like anything where now you don't have to really worry about armor class as much. That's kind of covered.
Yeah, and you've got your own little kind of like emplacement.
If you're going to go warlock, you could definitely go blade lock. You're going to have the strength for it. If you're going to go wizard, again, you're going to have the armor class. Figuring out with those cool combinations with your shell thing and concentration, that's gonna be a sweet spot. So there's a ton of options that you have for playing a Tortle, and obviously also too there's the druid is feels like the most obvious for these guys as well. They almost feel like druids just the way they wander through the wilderness and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you have the good strength, so you could actually just dump it if you wanted to, and it wouldn't really matter.
Yeah, I feel like that's a like the iconic. If you had to put one class to the race, I feel like I would select Druid for Tortles. And
one of the problems that Druids have oftentimes is that their armor class, they're restricted to hide, right? That's the best they can do. as natural armors. But now they're going to be, now they're going to basically have that splint mail, like you said, and they can use wooden shields. So a druid with a 19 armor class is huge, especially if you decide to go Circle of the Land, and you're not wild shaping into other beasts.
Well, yeah, you don't want to lose that armor class.
Right, yeah, well, yeah, that'd be like the biggest benefit. But it would meld nicely with Circle of the Land, I think.
I turn into a polar bear with this turtle shell on it.
that would be great. Now, I mean, technically, your abilities are supposed to go over with you, your traits. But if for some reason, I don't think they meant this.
A turtle can dream.
I know. I wild shape into a parrot with a turtle shell. So that's Tortles in a nutshell. Like I said, there is a link below in the description if you want to go check it out for yourself over on DMsGuild. With that, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
You can check out the articles over at Nerdarchy.com.
So until next time,
stay nerdy.
Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, 4 Nerds by Nerds, hanging out with
Nathan Nerdarch.
So today we're talking about turtles and turtle power! Jump down in the description below where you can find Nerdarchy the newsletter, as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy. But not only that, you can also find a link to the DMsGuild product, Tortles 5e. So this is pure gold, right? You can play a Mutant Ninja Turtle now.
Yeah, I've already been on several message groups. There's like, yes, when are we doing the TMNT play?
Tortle power is everywhere.
Yes, Tortle power.
So it's, you know what? When I envisioned a race of humanoid turtles, I did not envision. Just recently got, I guess it was Friday, this past Friday, if you're seeing this video when it goes up on Monday afternoon. We just got a new DMsGuild product put out by Wizards of the Coast. And it is 5e Tortles. It's also connected to charity, so the proceeds from this product are also going to go to that charity as well. I believe it's like a children's. The 4 of them, because the turtle actually gets stats as a monster as well as a player race. And then you're going to get a druid turtle NPC. You do get a couple like NPCs in the adventure, but they're not like fully statted
and stuff.
Yeah. So, but today what we're going to go over is Tortles as a player character race. So, one of the, I guess, like, especially if you're a child of, like, the 90s and 80s, like, hospital or something.
That's great. Now, I have to say, what I really like about the name is that they just changed the word turtle. They didn't make it some kind of weird esoteric name. They just changed it, U to an O. It's great.
Perfect.
Perfect.
So, from that product, what you're going to get is you're going to get an adventure, you're going to get a race, you're going to get a couple new monsters, like 3 of them. Now,